Let's just talk.
And recording.
No, he's going to go through all that CDE stuff yet, and then we will.
Okay.
And I think he's going to announce.
Yeah, I'll be doing that, Donette. Thank you. All righty. Hey, welcome back to the Washington Academy of General Dentistry Stay Home, Stay Healthy CE series. We continue tonight with Benton Bray, PLLC, and the Dental Accounting Pros. Tonight, we've got Kevin Bray and Brian Bray, the CPA, with the series Leading Beyond COVID. They have special guests tonight. Our special guests are from Dentistry Reinvented. Dr. Tonya Loving and Donette Hamilton are joining Brian and Kevin Bray this evening as part of our Leading Beyond COVID series. You'll see some slides going by, just announcing who our partners have been in these Stay Home, Stay Healthy CE series. Everybody from the Canadian Academy of Restorative Dentistry and Prosthodontics, pardon me, Comet USA, Patterson Dental. We've had partnerships with the Montana Academy of General Dentistry, the Arkansas Academy of General Dentistry, and we continue to build our partnerships with other AGD components out there. Our 2020-21 Master Track program is starting up again in the fall. We've got 4 sessions. Each session is 28 hours. We've dropped the fee on those courses, and so we invite you to use the QR code and take a look at some of the great speakers we have coming up. Everybody from Dr. Michael Fling to Leanne Brady, etc. So we've got a fantastic lineup there. We also are getting back rolling with hands-on courses. In July 25th, that's a Saturday, we're going to be doing a neurotoxin course. You know that as botulism toxin or Botox, and that's going to be at the Washington AGD Educational Center. There is still 3 slots available for that date. We've added a second date in September, and that's going to be on Friday, September 25th, 2020. And you can use the QR codes that are going by on those to get registered for those courses. Tonight's CE credits will be coming from the University of Washington School of Dentistry. You'll be receiving an email in the next couple of days with a PDF that will allow you to put your name on there and save it for your CE records. Those of you that are AGD members will be reporting your CE credits directly to the Academy of General Dentistry, and those should show up on your transcripts within the next couple of weeks. Just a reminder, we have our clinical implantology from A to Z that's starting with Dr. Yassine again in the fall. And we also have Dr. Bintran's hands-on orthodontic program, which is over 96 hours of orthodontic training for the general dentist. For any one that wants to register for these courses, use the QR codes that are going by, or use www.washingtonagd.org. We are on webinar number 59 in the WAGD Stay Home, Stay Healthy CE series. If you missed any of these webinars, you can go to our YouTube channel, that's Washington AGD. And just while you're there, remember to like and subscribe, and you'll be notified when new webinars are available. So it looks like we're at, how are our numbers doing? Okay, we'll give it just a couple more minutes here. Just some more housekeeping. If you have questions tonight, please type those in the Q&A section, the feature on your Zoom app there. Just you might see a button down on the bottom. It says Q&A. Just click on that, and that's where to put your questions, not in the chat feature. Tonight we're not using the raise the hands feature. If you have just some comments, fine, you could leave those in the chat. But if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. And oftentimes we get the same question over and over. So take a quick peek if there's other questions there. And if it's similar to yours, just use the thumbs up to raise that up or upcode that. I guess it's not upcoding, it's upvoting. Upcoding is something we do in dentistry, I guess, or downcoding if you're Delta Dental. Anyways, Saturday, August 15th, we've got a great course called Crown Preparation 101. It's from analog to digital. And what we do in this course is we take the young clinician and we walk them through a crown prep procedure, from seating the patient to doing the procedure to releasing them at the end, and all the verbal skills that go into that. So it's not just about cutting a crown prep, it's all those steps in between, selecting your build-up materials, evaluating the opposing teeth, etc. So anyways, with that, it's probably time to turn this over to our hosts, Kevin Bray and Brian Bray from Benton Bray PLLC and Dental Accounting Pros, and they're going to be introducing our guests tonight for our Leading Beyond COVID series. So welcome, Brian. Welcome, Kevin. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce these two expert presenters tonight. Many of you probably know or heard of these two, Dr. Tonya Loving and Donette Hamilton. They are what I would affectionately call chiseled veterans. They know their way around a dental clinic, dental industry for sure. These two started working together back in 1999, I believe. So they've spent a lot of years together. They play off each other really well. And what I like about the Tonya Donette team is, you know, the history they come from. Dr. Loving built an incredible practice, her own practice in Issaquah. Easily performed in the top single-digit % nationwide in terms of, you know, all those metrics that we look at, revenue, profitability, longevity of her staff and so forth. She, as I would say, she figured out the secret sauce to run an extremely successful practice, both in function and, you know, performance. So we couldn't have two better, more skilled, experienced veterans to present this topic. So Dr. Loving and Donette, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for the wonderful and kind introduction. You know, I'm honored to share this virtual venue with Benton Bray, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a message of encouragement with my colleagues. It's been a tough few months, and so I hope this is an inspiring message. And in wanting to know what to speak about, I decided that I should focus on the question that I most often receive, and that is, what should I be focused on? Because it's hard to know. There's a lot of moving targets right now. And if we can know what to focus on, we find great mental release just in that. And so I would tell you that my answer to that question remains the same, and it's unchanged, because I believe it's the cornerstone of my success as a dentist owner. And I recommend focusing on developing your leadership skills, because it will give your practice a rock solid foundation, and it will give you the opportunity to grow your practice to great heights. So let's talk about leading beyond COVID and why. You know, we can be assured that COVID will be a footprint of our past. We've done it before with other things in our past, like AIDS and HIV and H1N1, and even hepatitis C at one point. There was a lot of stress about those sort of things that we had to deal with, and we've gone beyond that. So be confident that COVID will be a footprint of our past. And next, we want to focus on the forward, because it's the future that provides the greatest return. Just like the stock market tells us, it's the direction we're all headed. So focusing on the future, greatest returns. And we need to accept that the world has permanently changed in a number of ways because of COVID. And we need to continue to go forward in the future because of that. And maybe most importantly, we should not just think outside the box, but we need to do outside the box, and that makes the difference. So let's all cast a vision forward. And so with COVID, there are a lot of vast unknowns, and we have rapidly changing standards. We're all navigating new territory, and it's much more demanding. So our routine is replaced with unfamiliarity and uncertainty. And this, we need to know, it requires and reveals our level of leadership. My friend Sam Chan, I think, says it best in a simplistic way. And his quote that I share with you today is, "The highest level of leadership is being able to lead in ambiguity." And I think we have less ambiguity than we did several months ago, but we all know that with all the changes, sometimes we feel like we're still in the unknown. And one thing to be aware of is our patients and our team members are constantly watching us. And so some things to consider in regards to that are your level of engagement, your compassion, your intentions, your flexibility, your way of thinking, your way of encouraging and motivating others, your grit, your willingness to look at your options, your ability to rally your team, your courage, your provision and protection for your team and patients, your willingness to gather a team around you, and your integrity. And my friends, that's a lot to shoulder. And so it's a hard grind right now, but I think the key is to remember we are responsible for all of these things. And so it's a big job, but we're constantly being analyzed. So the first step to me as a leader, we have to accept that we carry the highest level of responsibility as well as the greatest amount of stress. And that's okay, we accept it. And we know that our staff really can't quite relate to all the burdens that we carry. But the good news is that greater responsibilities will yield greater rewards. And that's truly the price and the gift of leadership. Greater responsibility gives greater rewards. So it helps that long laundry list of responsibilities be a little easier to accept. Other things to accept is the current state of limitations. Understand that during this time of transition, our production levels, our schedules, and our stress levels simply can't replicate pre-COVID times. You know, I'm the first one intuitively who wants to plunge into setting production goals and figuring out how many patients we can see. Instinctively, I want to make up for lost time in the operatories and accommodate every patient's request. But I suggest using caution about primarily focusing on traditional benchmarks at this time. Those benchmarks being production, collection, new patient goals. But instead consider a different set of goals. Consider navigating post-COVID business by focusing on stability through long-term rewards. Because during this time of transition, consider foundational priorities that will give you long-term dividends. And what I'm talking about are things like, how do I care for myself so I don't burn out? How do I appreciate my team to ensure their longevity? And how do I impress my patients so that they're comfortable receiving treatment and referring others? All important keys that will unlock long-term dividends. And Donette, I'll let you talk a little bit about that from the aspect of hygiene and employees. Tell me about production goals and things like that. How is it received?
Well, production goals are a normal part of life, but now that we are post-COVID, we really have to set that on a shelf for a season. I'm just finding that staff, and especially hygienists, are under so much stress just adapting to a new equipment, trying to appease patients that are fearful. Patients are very well educated now from the media. They're coming in with a myriad of questions and concerns. And really just the discomfort of wearing hot equipment, more masks, face shields, lights and all of that, it's just really difficult on your body. There are also new time constraints because you have more to do in that hour. So honestly, just putting production aside for the moment is really acceptable. And I know that I'll be able to do a better job once we get efficiency in place, and I'll be back to good old business and worrying about production later.
And I think that's the key, is being patient.
Mm-hmm.
Like realizing we are in transition. We're not going to hold at this pattern forever. We are going to be moving beyond, but just to try and take a breath and be patient for this small season. And then the next level of acceptance is that it's a new season, and we are all best equipped by employing new methods, strategies, and visions. Be flexible and embrace that there's no turning back. We're all moving forward. So how do we venture into this unprecedented landscape where protocols, norms, and needs are new and they're rapidly changing? Well, I wholeheartedly recommend honing your leadership skills and preparing to lead your team. And let's focus. Let's focus forward by casting your vision. Define your destination, because we need to decide on how to design our various pathways within the practice, such as processes, procedures, and personalities. And for that to happen, we need to know where we're going. We need to define our destination. So a clear vision of where you want to go actually requires aligning both your personal and your professional visions. You see, they're connected because we have to have a clear vision on where we want to go, and that requires aligning personal and professional lives. So a couple questions to help you dig into that. First of all, professionally, what do you want this year? Well, hopefully this year is different than next year. And how about the next 5 years? What does that look like professionally? And then on a different note, personally, what do you want this year, next year, and the next 5 years to look like? And the reason why we think they're so closely correlated and that they must align is, an example is, if professionally I want to produce 50% more next year, but I also want to take off 3 times, well, we're not going to say 3 times in 3 months, but if I want to take off more time or have a different schedule, that would be a much harder thing to accomplish. So we'll talk about a little later, too, that we want to align professionally and personally because they're very linked and they affect one another, just even emotionally. Next question is to decide what drains you, both within and outside your practice. Decide what energizes you within and outside your practice. And I'd encourage everybody to take some time when they do this and really put thought into it, because it's key to that starting point in preparing your vision. This is one of my favorites, and this is to consider how an iceberg can represent an unbalanced life. Because the glorious peak that rests above the waterline is so impressive to the onlookers. It creates a visual awe, if you will. But then we have to think about what lies underneath the iceberg, underneath the water that's submerged. And that typically will represent a personal life, let's say, that may be broken and consists of a lot of fractures, such as depression, such as disappointment, things that are hidden from public view. Because in that iceberg, only 10% of the mass is above the water, and in an iceberg, 9 times that, or 90%, is submerged. So I think that points to a good question. Is your personal and professional lives, are they equally successful and enjoyable? Or are they out of balance, like that symbol we use regarding an iceberg? And just like icebergs are consistently in transition and changing, we need to constantly evaluate our goals with monthly, quarterly, and annual analysis. And I know, Brian, that may be a great thing for you to comment on, but I know you help practices with that substantially in the financial benchmarks. Maybe you want to comment on that.
What I have found with any business owner is that you can either choose to kind of wander through the year and end up where you end up, or you can define the big red target on the wall that you are shooting at. And you know, that's not something you sit down at the beginning of the year and draw the picture of what you want and then forget about it and stuff those notes in your drawer. It's an ongoing, interactive, you know, week in, week out, month in, month out kind of plan, because it does change as the year goes on. But without that big red target painted on the wall, you fail to consciously and subconsciously drive your efforts to hit the bullseye. So I couldn't agree with you more. You have to define what you want, define it in quantifiable terms, as I would use the analogy, paint that big red target. What does that mean? How many days of the year are you going to work? What kind of revenue and profitability do you want? What kind of stability do you want with your crew? Do you need to downsize your staff, upsize your staff? You know, all those things. And if you don't have that target defined, your actions will just end up wandering instead of driving towards the target. I've seen it time and time again. I've been doing this a long time. And I got to say, Tonya, what you did with your own practice, that wasn't by mistake. That was with lots of planning and constant touch and energy to evaluate and massage, you know, all those variables that drive towards the target. But I see it across our clients. The clients that spend more time on planning and then reverse engineer what they need to do to hit the target usually end up hitting the target versus the opposite of that.
Right. So it means having a constant pulse, right?
Constant pulse.
Absolutely. And this picture I just love because it's a contrast to the iceberg, where the reflection of the strong, bold mountain is equivalent. There is nothing submerged. So if the mountain peak represents your professional life, and it's obviously quite bold and successful, but then the reflection is the personal life. And so they're equalized. And that's one of the greatest joys about helping dentist owners in consulting, is to achieve and unlock the freedom of a joyful balance in a lifestyle, to have the practice of your dreams, but the lifestyle that goes with it. And so now we get to, how do we nurture that sort of growth? If we have some sort of vision, what do? Well, we need to completely embrace and understand that growth means change. And everybody's changing, including you. In fact, we can't stay the same, and we're meant to change. So when you grow, expect your life to change. And then along those same lines is that change is equivalent to loss. So often you need to concede to lose something in order to move forward. And examples of that might be comforts or habits, possibly a staff member or routines. But the good news is that growth, it yields goodness, and it comes with some pain, but we have to have faith that the goodness is going to overcompensate for that discomfort. And so again, as we relate back to COVID-19, our thought that things are certain has been eroded. We've experienced that instantaneously we can have a radically different or irrelevant circumstance. So we really need to be willing to change our mind about how we do things and how we lead.
If I could just insert there, Tonya, I couldn't agree more. And I guess the definition of insanity is expecting better results doing the same old thing. And so that the message I try to plant with the practice owners we work with is continually think about how you can change the delivery of dental services. And that's the giving up the old and accepting the new.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, you know, the next slide says it nicely in that way, that change means accepting the uncomfortable for the anticipation of improvement, or the trade up, right? We've talked about that, Brian. Yep. And here's where we start to dig into a few things, and that is the evaluation process. Evaluate each team member. Is she a great fit for her current role? Does she fit with the team dynamics? One of the things we frequently see is it's actually not a new hire. It's the tenured, it could be the tenured employee who's maybe bored or she's moved even though she's worked with you for 20 years. And there's a complacency or what seems to be like a doctor's gift and pet and reliant one, maybe more like an office bully. Has there been an attitude shift? So just evaluate each team member, because really what it could be is that we need to switch up their current role to let their gifts and talents shine. So evaluation, I think, is key, and often you can dig into that more with employee one-on-one conferencing and reviews. Secondly, we need to evaluate for delegation. And I like to define delegation because it doesn't mean that, okay, I'm going to have Sally start emptying the garbages for me and cleaning the bathrooms and things like that. That's task-oriented. What I'm talking about for delegation is to respectfully trust a team member to complete a duty just as well or better than you. So what it requires is yielding and investing in a team member. And that is a beautiful thing for both of you, but it does take time and energy, and it's not meant to be simple tasks. It's important responsibilities, and it usually does require some training and some investment. And then thirdly, it's evaluate for addition through subtraction. And the example for this to me is if you have an employee who's, well, just not productive or divisive, causing conflict, is to really stop and analyze by ignoring that. What is the cost? And what I mean by that, how does that reflect your philosophy, and how does that drain your coworkers? And we often will see that, you know, there's this underlying current or tension that just isn't dealt with. And I think the hard part is that it's a big drag on your team as well as burdensome for the employer. So really something to think about. And then another thing as we look at all these evaluations is that we want to realize that teammates should all be treated fairly, of course, but they also all have different capabilities, interests, desires, and so we really want to make sure we plug them in to the right spot. We don't want to treat them the same in that way. That's where we are able to assign tasks accordingly. And so that social person should be the greeter at the front desk. They love to engage. Don't put someone up there who doesn't want to do that, right? So boldly share responsibilities, delegate, and those who possess the capabilities, the interests, and the gifts, it will mutually benefit both of you. So it takes some time to think about who that is and sometimes move people around and give it a try, but it's well worth it. And how do you feel about delegation, being an employee in the past? What does that look like in a team, Donette?
I'll be honest with you, delegation increases an employee's self-esteem, their value, and it just makes me believe that you can trust me with a bigger project than my mundane duties. For example, when I worked with you, you would come to the hygienist and say, hey, we want to start a new marketing plan. Do you have any ideas? Let's work outside of the box and do some brainstorming. Well, that just gave us confidence that you believed that we were bigger than what we were, and that you believed that we could do something unusual or different and creative. And honestly, that creativity was fun. I mean, that was why we worked with you, because you would delegate, you would increase our self-esteem, and you complimented us on any idea we brought forward, and then we went forward with that.
Right.
Loved it, absolutely loved it.
Another example of moving forward and change, right? So next I'd like to talk about the significance of value. And this just captivated me because value is a bit of an intangible. Value is not any single thing. It's an aura and an atmosphere, an overpowering feeling that a company is doing everything with excellence. And it's hard to attain because we're looking for high value. And high value entails exceptional quality and service along every point of interaction during a patient's visit. And interestingly enough, that makes it impossible for the dentist to be the one to provide that, because you can't go with that patient along every point of interaction. And it also requires each team member to respect, support, and appreciate one another. And I really believe that it's important to realize that both patients and team members are assessing an increased value through your office culture. And we talked about the intangible. Office culture is most influenced by the sum of the relationship amongst your team. So some questions to follow up with. How could you and your team focus on giving your patients increased value during their interactions? What value do your patients assign their level of care? We can find that out, right? We could be asking friends and family members who come in, tell us your perception, share on a really intimate and detailed level. What value do your employees place on their teammates' position, doctor, and practice? Well, we very well know that if they have high value, then that employee is willing to invest in their teammates' position, doctor, and practice. So those are the sort of people you want to help shine and invest in. And that leads us to the statement that is really the rock bottom result. And that is, while price is important, it's not nearly as important as value. And again, I'd encourage you to think about in the mind frame of patients, but also employees as far as value. So let's explore some possibilities in order to set some priorities. And again, we're going to divvy those up. We're going to set professional possibilities, and we're going to set personal visions as well. So let's hone in on that. Number one, what is your current stress level at work? And what is your biggest stressor? Let's find out why, and let's tackle it. Let's create some solutions. Number two, what is the overall energy of your office? Well, encouragement's contagious, as is discouragement. So let's focus on that energy and culture. Who most influences the current culture of your practice? Describe the what, how, and why. I really encourage you to get team feedback on this. Usually it's very universal to what they'll describe. Number four is, would your team describe your practice as having a healthy work environment? And by healthy, we need to both look at the mental and the physical side. So ask your team. Sometimes they're busy talking to each other about, wow, I wish we had new operator stools, but the doctor has no idea. So ask. Sometimes the schedule or the way things are being scheduled are taxing the team, but they're busy talking amongst each other instead of openly communicating so we can cultivate change. Number five is, how do you deal with internal conflict within your team and practice? And be honest to evaluate, is there currently conflict in your office? Number six, create or examine your mission statement. And does it define your current vision? We talked about the world is a different place. You very well may have an entirely different vision based on your current condition and the condition of the world and your stage of practice. And does every team member embrace your vision? Do they even know your vision, or is it just hanging on a wall? Number seven is, do your employees fully understand your expectations and their responsibilities? I would say this is very frequently overlooked. You know, a dentist thinks they should understand, but they don't. And potentially it was never really communicated. So that's a neat cornerstone that you can make big changes with and improvements. Number eight, how do you onboard a new employee? A lot of times it's like, I don't know how, they just come in and they just start working. Well, I'd really encourage you to create a protocol in this regard, because this is the key to satisfaction and longevity. And we all know that with our team, if we have satisfied employees who stick with us, it's easier for all of us, and we can be far more productive and comfortable and grow together. So having a system to onboard a new employee is critical, especially in this climate. Number 9 is, how do you onboard a new patient? Well, we know new patients are vital, and their experience impacts our practice by determining their longevity, their satisfaction, their referrals, their reviews. So the big question is, could we invest more in our new patient protocols? So something to keep in mind too is, in regards to that new patient and that new employee, it's going to cost 3 times the amount of time, energy, and money if we need to replace them. So put a little more energy into the onboarding for both of them, and you'll have great rewards. Anything you might say about that, Donette?
Well, honestly, onboarding new employees is becoming a new thing. Normally, a new employee would show up at work, do a working interview. If they liked it, you didn't really think much about it, but now we have to really do a little bit of enticing. We want them to like the culture. So I think when we're thinking about onboarding, we're actually creating a culture in our practice. We're honing it. And I think that's really important so that we do entice good employees, and we want them to want to stay, because patients like familiar faces when they come to the practice.
Absolutely.
So it's not just the patients that we care about, it's also the employees now, which is new and radically different.
And I think we just talked to a client today, and we had to coach him because we had to remind him that actually we are no longer interviewing employees. They are more so interviewing us. And they are more attracted to a great culture than even the pay, believe it or not. They're looking for a great culture to be a part of. So it's another climate of change. But I think in an interview, instead of thinking of it as an interview, it's really a meet and greet. It's a getting to know and sharing vision, because that's what they're looking for.
And how are we going to work together?
Absolutely.
And what did you not like from your previous employer? The common thing we're hearing now is, I'm not appreciated, and I'm really just overtaxed, and nobody knows about it, and nobody cares. There's not a platform for discussing this. No staff meetings, nothing.
And I think that's part of creating your vision, is you want to share it, right, for the success and for the launch of it. So when you're interviewing that new employee, how impressive to share your vision.
Yes.
And bring them on board early.
It will be very unique. Nobody's doing that.
Right, I know. So let's do it, right?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about some personal questions, things to delve into. What is your personal level of satisfaction outside of the office? And evaluate the why. Would you like to make any changes to your schedule? Evaluate your current work schedule and your annual time off. Right now, that one's all over the place, because we've had this rare circumstance of a 2+ month sabbatical. And all of a sudden, there's people who really want to work more. They're geared up. But there's, I would tell you, more people, both dentists and staff, who want to change their schedule. They want to embrace a little more of that personal, professional balance. And I think that's important to know for the owner. But also, if I was an owner right now, I'd also be finding out from my team. I'd be one-on-one conferencing. What are they expecting for schedule? Because that could greatly influence and cause some changes in your ability to schedule patients. So I'd be particular on that one. Number 3 is, would your personal relationships benefit from more quality time with you? That's kind of what people have been commenting on as well, because of having time off with family, less pressures, more margin. And are you able to spend adequate time pursuing outside interests? All important things to figure out if we're more in the iceberg range and we want to move toward the mountain range. So things to consider. So now it's time to get excited and to take next steps to improve your practice, to implement. And that requires identifying 2 to 5 items, like people, processes, and stressors that are posing weaknesses, challenges, and conflicts for your practice. Again, consider asking your team for suggestions. And after that, we want to prioritize our list. We want to develop solutions with active steps to improve. And present this as an action item for team communication, input, and involvement. But for action to take place, it's very necessary to set expectations through designation and definition. And that's a simple question. It's an outline that says who is going to do what by when. Okay, put parameters. And I think it's important also to put it in writing, not to be legalistic about it, but just to create mutual understanding of responsibility and expectation, and also to have follow-up and accountability. And that goes for any goals that the doctor sets and puts forward to the team for him or herself as well. So define it. I think that's really important and helpful. Communication and connection, they're related, and they're actually what I would consider the absolute cornerstone for successful leadership. And what I mean by that is communication is necessary to set expectations, to reduce assumptions, and to build relationships. And in order to align your purpose, people, and processes, you need to communicate with the entire team. So many times we find dentist owners who get frustrated, and that's because their communication, they're like, why do I have to keep saying the same thing? Why is it ongoing? Why is there not a finish line? I've already talked about it at a staff meeting. Why do I have to bring it up again? And then sometimes, frankly, they quit bringing it up because they get tired. And you have to accept that there is no finish line. It requires repetition, ongoing conversation, ongoing improvement as well. And then the other part that we see is that we need to cross-train. And by cross-training, we usually think of, well, I have 2 front desk people, and each of them should know how to handle the front desk with every aspect. And that is true, and that's huge value for you and your practice and your patients. But additionally, let's think of cross-training as a little bigger. And what I mean by that is when we educate our teams, if we think of something related to hygiene, let's talk about SRP, or let's talk about that we need probings, or any aspect of hygiene, what's going to happen is the knowledge that the front desk has needs to be nearly equivalent to the knowledge that the hygienist has. So we can't just train our hygienist in this aspect. We need to be training our front desk and our assistants. And the reason why is because patients are going to ask questions pertinent to clinical information at the front desk. And we want to make sure we have that high value where we've trained people to know something about what we're talking about as a whole and as a team, because we all wear the same jersey, and patients expect us to know. We can't just say, oh, I'm front desk, I don't know, let me go get a hygienist for you. Now, if we delve into specifics, sometimes we say, oh, the hygienist, I'm going to have Donette speak with you on this because I want to make sure you get all the details you want. But we have to have some general working knowledge. So when that patient's at the front, they can answer some simple questions in regards to clinical definitions and ideas. And then also in the back, they're going to ask questions about cancellations or how to bill insurance or things like that. And we have to at least be knowledgeable and approachable for our patients. And so how would you offer information on that cross-training in a real-life situation?
Actually, it's really essential now. For example, a patient calls and says, hey, I'm coming in to have my teeth cleaned, and I can't make it, and it really doesn't matter. Just schedule me in 6 months. And the receptionist pulls it up and sees that they're on a 3-month periodontal maintenance schedule. Well, right away, the alert is that receptionist should know if you're on a 3-month periodontal maintenance, it's because you have disease and infections that we're checking. And they can easily step in and say, excuse me, I'd like to schedule you for the next convenient appointment because of this reason. We're fighting infection. So they're there ready to educate the patient just as if the hygienists were educating the patient in the chair.
Absolutely.
So they really need to know the importance of those services.
And, yeah, they're a vital link.
Vital.
And so I think it gets back to the team concept, and that we all have to be willing to appreciate each other, respect each other, and help each other.
Yeah.
I think it goes right back to that.
So Tonya, I want to ask you a question here before you move on. So when you're working with offices and trying to help them, you know, improve and build from where they're at, what is the kind of correlation you see with offices that maybe don't build in time for communication? I would expect there'd be a direct correlation to the performance and satisfaction and all those metrics in an office that really doesn't take the time or build in the time to communicate. And the second part of that question is can you share kind of the real life daily schedule when you were in practice, and in your, you know, from the time you showed up in the morning to the time you went home, did you schedule the dialogue, the time slots for the communication piece?
Thank you. And it's actually a beautiful segue, because we're going to talk about scheduling time to connect, Brian. So definitely, you know, the biggest thing is you can't just sit down and talk around a table. It requires preparation. So there's investment, and you need to schedule the time to make it happen, and you need to be committed to the meeting times. And this is what I see right now. There's definitely a correlation between the investment of the time and the energy and the success of a practice, because it's really about efficiencies, taking good care of patients, and that deserves the respect, and it gains the success. But what we're seeing right now is, you know, a lot of people, we're trying to accommodate those patients like we talked about. We're trying to drive production and make up for lost time. And so we're like, oh, we don't need team meetings. Oh, we're starting extra early, so no more morning meetings. Just figure it out. You know, we're doing a lot of the fly by the seat of our pants, and that interrupts efficiency and production. And it's really hard to impress patients and teams when you're flying by the seat of your pants. So specifically, you know, I got to the office very early because I went through every patient and every chart. But I don't know that. I don't know that.
Literally did that.
I don't know that that is necessary. You know, what we need to do is delegate. I could have been a better delegator, to be perfectly honest. And at the morning meeting, it's crucial. But I will offer some things about a morning meeting that may be a little different than you've thought about or utilized. So number one, by definition, that morning meeting serves to organize your day, and to organize what is hopefully a successful day, and to help prepare for the unexpected. So there's a lot that goes into it. We don't just look at it. We actually analyze that day and those patients and what's gone into creating that day, and what can we sort of expect, and then prepare for some things we're not going to expect. I did something differently in my morning meetings, and that was I did not have my entire team huddle together. Because of the large size of my team, I felt like it was better to fracture it out. And so I met with my hygienists one-on-one separately. And it wasn't long. It was maybe 3 to 5 minutes. But I got a snapshot of their day. So I could give that hygienist a little more time.
I would like to speak to this. Honestly, if you want to connect to your hygienist and show them value and do magic there, this is key. Because I felt like it wasn't more than 5 minutes. We were very busy. It was condensed. The first thing she would tell me is key patients that she was concerned about. And that would just enlighten me to where she was headed with those patients, as well as things I needed to be aware of. Hey, her mother just died, etc., things I wouldn't have known. But that also it gave me confidence for my day. It built value into me, and frankly, loved working and connecting with my employer. And she did that with us every single day.
But I would also say you created also a pathway for me, because you would give me an understanding of a snapshot of where they're at periodontally.
Yep, that's true.
So we could share that communication, and that It was a nice delegation. I let her own the perio part, and I owned the restorative part, but then we came together to create that snapshot of that patient. So I am a proponent of meeting individually with your hygienist, and we don't need to share information like, I'm going to do 4 bite wings on Mr. Jones. No. I don't need to know that. That's on the schedule.
It's just a big picture.
Yeah. Give me nuggets. Yeah. Give me the important things that I need to remember. And then I'm jotting notes on my master schedule. And then she may have something that she's like, I'm identifying that I'm going to have a need here. This patient I'm probably going to run late with. So I might need someone to help me turn my room over.
Love that.
So then I would take that information that I gained from each hygienist and bring that forward to then my meeting with my clinicians, my dental assistants, and I had 1 front desk representative. And then we go over the schedule of restorative columns, and then I can bring the insight of what's going to be needing to pull my dental assistants, what's expected down in hygiene. So it created a master vision, but it didn't wrap up everybody's time. I'm just pulling the necessary information forward.
And the key was on-time seating.
Yeah.
And that helped.
Yeah.
That was essential. And we did.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. Morning meeting, if I have an 8 o'clock patient, my morning meeting usually starts at about 7:40. And I'm doing meetings until 5 minutes to the hour because I believe in starting my day successfully, and that means starting on time. Don't let patients coming in and out distract you. Put a nice sign up that says, we're preparing for you. We're in a meeting. We'll be out by 7:55, and then stick to that. And it's well worth the time to have an organized meeting.
I want to speak to this. With this COVID, we're finding that you've got a line of people in your parking lot. A lot of them get there really early for some reason. And if we're asking hygienists to come early, do all of this in advance, be ready at 7:45, just in case your patient is there. I know it adds 15 extra minutes to the bill for the day or the cost of the day, but I'll tell you what, it's really helping with keeping on-time seating.
Yeah. And the key to being on time is understanding your day, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the anticipation. The next meeting.
Tonya, so you turned your morning meeting very, very efficient with each of your hygienists and your clinicians and your front desk representative. How much time did you invest in preparing for those meetings?
I did invest significant time. I would usually get to the office at 6:30 in the morning if I have an 8 o'clock patient. So I was there well before. And some of that is so that I could get some work done in the morning in preparation, but also not get behind if I had things from the evening prior. So I didn't want to start my day behind. So anything I didn't finish before I left home the day before, I liked being there early to get it taken care of, not getting burdened and behind.
So it was kept up time and then preparing for the day and your meetings.
Yeah.
So I just want to stitch in what you've been talking about up to this point is each practice owner has to define what they want. And
exactly.
For you, it's you define what you want and you were willing to pay the price for the reward. The price being at the office at 6:30 to do this prep work, to have this amazing day and super productive day. And that in all those sacrifices pushed the reward that by the numbers pushed you into the top 1% of operating practices. The point is every doctor's got to decide what they want, right?
Exactly.
And then operate accordingly. There's going to be plenty of doctors that don't want to make that sacrifice. Right.
Absolutely. That's very well put. Yep. That connects the pieces.
Yeah.
And that's where you must have the alignment. Because, getting there at 6:30 means you're getting up awfully early, right? Especially if you're commuting. So absolutely. Define it. Create the vision and decide. And some of the things I did in the morning, quite frequently, I could have had staff do, but I wanted to do it. So define your vision. And the next thing is team meetings. And I can't tell you how often I hear that team meetings or staff meetings, doctors quit doing them. And usually because it became a gripe session. It wasn't productive. It costs money, right? And it is an investment, but I highly recommend that staff meeting. I recommend it monthly. I recommend that it's done the 1 hour following lunch so that your staff gets lunchtime. Let them eat and breathe and take a break, and then start promptly after lunch, and it runs for 55 minutes actually, because you have to be back to your patients on time for the afternoon. So, but don't just show up at a table again and say, well, what are we going to talk about? Let's have an agenda. Let's be collecting ideas and suggestions and ways to improve, or identifying weaknesses to brainstorm about, so that we can make a productive meeting. This is where I really went divergent in my communication. I actually scheduled weekly meetings with my assistants, and it's true. I mean, weekly meetings meant I only spent 15 minutes, and it was like every Wednesday. Every Wednesday, my team knew that instead of coming back at 1 o'clock for lunch, they came back at 12:45, met in my office, and we just had touch points. Did we need to talk about impression materials, or things that we're seeing aren't going well, or concerns that the assistants had about the way things were being scheduled? Okay, great. Well, then we can bring that forward. I'm collecting information. I'm creating solutions that I can continually bring forward. And if I meet with my assistants every Wednesday, anything we talked about, that following week we're going to follow up on. We're going to continue to gain momentum in the improvement department. And it held me accountable, and it held my team accountable. So it worked very well. And again, 15 minutes. Next is hygiene meetings. Hygiene meetings, typically I recommend quarterly on a Friday, but in today's climate, I might suggest monthly. And we can do it on a Friday, but have the flexibility of a Zoom call, do a video conference. But the key is that you get all of your hygienists so that you can hear what's going on, so they can dialogue with the dentist instead of alternate.
Right, and it makes unity. That
Absolutely.
creates unity amongst your dental hygienists, because we all come from different backgrounds, different schools of training, and different ways of looking at things. And one thing Dr. Loving did, and I strongly recommend, is she would give us materials to read. You know, hey, I found this article, it's really good, about SRP, or about diagnosing, or about silver diamine fluoride, or a new product. What do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then we would talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good way to keep us in the educational loop, and oftentimes it was about periodontal disease and systemic things that were brand new, new education that was out there that we could present to our patients.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kept the progress of education going, like a little mini CE.
And it's unification, like you said, but it also helps move things forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm already considering a new procedure or a new laser or something like that, I've already got them a bit educated behind the scenes, and now when we come to our meeting and our conference, we can move it to a next step, whether that's let's start an implementation, let's get a lunch and learn, whatever it is. We can actually make movement. And then I also did weekly meetings during my lunch hour, again around the 15-minute mark, with my front desk staff. So my front desk staff knew, and I usually do that on Thursday, it's the end of the week, but I wanted to have a pulse on ARs. I wanted to have a pulse on patient concerns or interactions. I wanted to have a pulse on specialist communications. I wanted to have a pulse on my front desk and let them know that, they have access to me, and if they have concerns, like, say, an assistant was frustrated because how the front desk scheduled something, they're going to probably bring it up, and then, okay, well, then that's something we need to talk about. I can address that specifically with my assistant. We can bring it up at the meeting. Is it a universal thing we need to look at? But the whole point is the communication is essential for relationship and unity. And if we all are on the same team, we should all want that.
Right.
And I think, again, it goes back to creating a culture that we're all there to serve each other, and our patient is at the core of that. So everything we do for each other is the best service our patients. And I think if you're driven by that, it goes well.
There's another thing I want to add to this that Tonya did, and dentists that do this, it's a profound difference. even though you have all these meetings, things come up during the day, and Tonya's approachable. You knew that you could go to her. You could just, between eye contact or something, like, I need you. And you were right there to give advice or to direct things. I thought that was just really key. I mean, it wouldn't be the mundane thing, of course. It was just the key thing that we had to have your take on it at the time.
Well, and I think what that brings up is if there's no lead, everybody feels like they're in their own world, right? And sometimes as a leader, it's okay. I mean, I think as dentists and dentist owners, we're so used to coming up with a solution and an answer in an instant. And sometimes it's okay to pause and say, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. I'll let you know tomorrow, right? Put a time frame and follow up. But there's a lot of pressure, like I said, with running a team. And, you know, I happen to have a very large team of 17 staff members. And so there's a lot of people that required coordination, but it can be done. But I'll go back to what Brian said, and it depends on what you want. And especially in this landscape, now's the time to decide what you want. Yeah, we're restructuring things, and find the confidence to dig deep and create your own vision. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think we all get hung up on comparing ourselves to our peers.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, so-and-so's got a $2 million practice. You know, I should have that. But I'll tell you, if you define what you want, and let's say it's a $800,000 practice working 3 days a week, and it checks all the boxes on your financial needs and being able to set aside money for retirement. If you achieve all those goals with that model, you have won the game. You should check the box.
Absolutely. And then that's a little part of my personal piece. You know, I worked very hard, and I loved what I did. I will often share that my practice and my staff was my first child. And then I had children later in life, and so then my balance was off. I will often say I created a machine that was just too great to be able to balance family life with professional life. So I can completely understand that, and I think that's the respectful part, is figure out what you want. It doesn't have to be what someone else is doing. It's not like that at all. Define what you want to be successful. And for many people, especially female practitioners, it's going to be very different, especially when they have a family. So I think that's key. And that kind of takes us into praise and pour into your team. And that's because currently we all know that there's a critical shortage of dental professionals. And what we're seeing is most everybody has plenty of patients to service. We have a backlog, but we don't have enough staff. And, you know, that was pre-COVID. And now when COVID hit, it's even amplified. So your success, satisfaction, and potential are truly contingent on your team. So I think you need to acknowledge the value of your team and take the opportunity to thank them, praise them, and pour into them. I think it's now more than ever to realize that your team members are your ladder holders. And what I mean by that is you can only climb as high as those people that you have holding your ladder. And realize that you can't climb very high if you don't have people there to support you. So I know this. If your team feels undervalued and underappreciated, they're going to burn out, and they're going to take you with them. And if they feel appreciated, you all get to advance higher, and it just feels good. And so I'll let you talk a little bit about gratitude and what that feels like to team members.
You know, gratitude goes such a long way. I always ask dentists, when is the last time you thanked your staff for the day? Or just as they're walking out, hey, thank you. I really couldn't have done it without you. Just simple. That employee would come back the next day willing to be there. And it was something Tonya did really sincerely. I don't know how she pulled it off, but she thanked like no other. In fact, even when she would walk out of the patient room after her exam, she would thank the hygienist, Thank you for doing such a good job, Donette. Do you know what that did to the patient? It recognized that I was doing a great job, which made the patient think I was doing a great job. I mean, it was magic, and it was sincere. She never made it up. So I would say gratitude is the key. And I've been interviewed about 4 employees this week for several positions. And I said, what's the #1 reason you're leaving that job? I'm not appreciated. Blanket statement. And I thought, wow, just a little thank you could just change all that.
Well, and it's hard, right?
Yeah, we're busy.
It's hard. It's very hard. So my challenge to this group is, friends, I would tell you to express your appreciation for each of your staff members, and do it this week. Acknowledge them with a token gift. It could be a candy bar or a small plant, but most importantly, personally thank them, because it's their unique gifts and talents that contribute to your success. And so make that loudly known, and it just changes everything. I think gratitude changes everything. So that's my challenge. Get them a lotto ticket and say, I'm so grateful for you, whatever it is. But show your appreciation, and it goes a long way, and it creates office culture.
It does.
An office culture steeped in gratitude,
Oh, can't go wrong.
it's the best.
Can't go wrong.
So now it's time to say, get excited to improve. Make a plan to drive change. Be intentional, but realistic. Make it your own. Focus on progress instead of perfection. But most importantly, it all comes down to starting your journey. So we're here to thank you and to tell you, we assist dentist owners to define their vision, to lead their team, refine their office culture, but I think most importantly, to discover a meaningful lifestyle, to discover that balance. So please contact us if you want to learn more about our coaching services. We include virtual, collaborative, and affordable methods, and we're here to assist dentist owners with growth and development. We thank you for your time on this beautiful day, and we thank the AGD, and we thank Benton Bray. Appreciate it.
I couldn't endorse these 2 stronger. They're fabulous. In their years of experience and the knowledge they have in their heads to help practice owners is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for putting this on. Appreciate it.
Well, appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, we absolutely do. Thank you.
I have a question for the 2 of you. With so many of our dental meetings being canceled, obviously because of the COVID-19, those used to be real good team building events, and the Seee was important. How do we replace the PNDC, and how do we replace the ADA and annual meeting and the AGD annual meeting? What are your thoughts there?
That's a great question, and it's a necessary question. We have to come up with a solution, and I think it's much like this. We do online, we do virtual meetings, right? We bring that in. We know there's a ton available, like the AGD has provided, and I think it kind of goes back to instead of just giving a handout, hey, I saw this awesome presentation. Let's schedule that. And let's do pizza and popcorn, or what have it, because I know that's kind of not acceptable in some realms, but in the dental office
we do that.
We do that, right? So I think we got to be creative, Tim. I think that's an excellent idea. I think it's very available at our fingertips and more convenient, and we should be doing more of it than we ever did before.
And just motivational, inspirational. I mean, teams need that, because dentistry is hard. It's a lot of hard work, and it can get really mundane. And I think one of the biggest problems we have now, it has a ceiling to where an employee can go, especially one that wants to climb hard, and they're leaving dentistry to go to Amazon, start at the bottom to work their way up, thinking there's going to be somewhere to go. So I think in offices there can be a career ladder, but it has to be a unique dentist that's willing to think outside the box to make that happen. It makes them successful. It makes the employees successful. So that way you're capitalizing on really good employees, keeping them, retaining them. But, motivational things in the office. I hope the PNDC comes back. I mean, I don't know how that's going to look in a year, right? We're working on 2021 right now, but I don't know. Nobody knows.
But I think the important part that you bring up, Dr. Hess, is let's not forget about it, right?
Yes.
Let's not just say there's no PNDC, so we don't do that anymore. We can still bond and learn in actually easier ways. So I think it's about making it happen and making that part of your vision and building it in. Make a plan.
I know the Washington Academy of General Dentistry, we're looking for more things to do virtually with teams and staff. And so we're open to any ideas that anybody has out there that wants to share, you know, great speakers and that. We appreciate that. And we're looking to do that as we develop our new website and on-demand CE. So.
Okay.
That is fabulous.
Yeah, that'll be such an asset.
Absolutely. Way to think outside the box.
That is.
We're trying.
You're doing great. You're doing phenomenal, actually.
Kevin, Brian, do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so. So no questions were coming through?
No, we don't have any extra ones.
No, I don't. And so we have all the contact information there. Thank you very much, Dr. Loving and Donette Hamilton, for joining us this evening. I'm going to take over the screen and just give information regarding CE credits. Thank you to everybody that's joined us tonight for the Washington Academy of General Dentistry's Stay Home, Stay Healthy CE series. This is number 59 in the series. We would remind you that if you missed any of these webinars, that they're available on YouTube at Washington AGD. And if you go to our website, www.washingtonagd.org, there's a link to our YouTube channel there. Your CE credits will be arriving from the University of Washington School of Dentistry. You'll see a email come to the address that you registered at. There will be a PDF file attached there. You'll be able to put your information in there and just save that for your records. AGD members, we will report your CE credits directly to the Academy of General Dentistry. As always, we'd like to thank everybody that's helped to put together this webinar series, Comet USA, Patterson Dental, Benton Bray, PLLC, Dental Accounting Pros. We'd like to thank Dentistry Reinvented tonight for joining us. We'd like to thank the Arkansas Academy of General Dentistry, Montana AGD, the Canadian Academy of Restorative Dentistry and Prosthodontics. We'd like to thank the other dental societies in our area that have provided support over these webinar series. We look forward to upcoming AGD CE events that we have, both virtual events, and we're going to be starting again at our educational center with hands-on events, including botulism toxin, our implantology from A to Z series, our ortho continuum, our master track program, and our crown preparation 101. We thank all of our AGD members out there that have provided support to our University of Washington School of Dentistry student chapter by mentoring our student AGD members. We appreciate it. I'd like to thank our executive director, Valerie Bartoli, for all her support and putting these webinars together, and Dr. Gary Hayamoto for helping be one of our panelists on all these webinars. With that, I'd like to say thank you for joining us tonight. Keep looking to your email box there for upcoming webinars and other CE opportunities. There's these QR codes that will take you basically to the WashingtonAGD.org website, where you'll be able to register for upcoming events. So thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you, Kevin, Brian, Tonya, and Donette. Have a great evening.